What would happen if Jake Paul fought the best martial artists in Hollywood? Real fighters, men no one would want to face. No one, except Jake, who doesn't fear death as long as there's another $50 million on the line. Let's start by putting him against the most complete fighter in Hollywood, Scott Adkins, black belt in Taekwondo, kickboxing, judo, and jiu-jitsu. 3 decades dedicated to perfecting his craft. Jake Paul steps in with his usual confidence, hands up, ready to box. The bell rings. Paul throws his trademark combination, jab, cross, hook. Adkins blocks the first 2 and catches the hook in mid-air. Before Paul can react, a spinning kick crashes into his floating ribs. The sound is like a bat striking flesh. Paul steps back, the air ripped from his lungs. He has never felt a kick like that. He tries to recover, but Adkins is already firing a brutal low kick into his thigh. Paul's leg violently jerks. Paul attempts to push forward to throw more punches, but every time he commits, Adkins punishes him. Another spinning kick to the same ribs. Paul lets out an audible scream. Another low kick. His leg partially gives out. Paul is now fighting on essentially one leg, his ribs screaming with every breath. He throws a desperate hook. Adkins ducks and launches a rising spinning kick straight into the ribs for the 3rd time. Paul drops to his knees, clutching his side, unable to breathe properly. When he tries to stand, his leg buckles again. The referee steps in and stops the fight. Time, 1 minute and 47 seconds. Adkins isn't even sweating. He looks at Paul and says, "Goodwill, but you need to learn how to defend kicks." Now, let's see how he fares against none other than the multi-time champion Michael Jai White. A true martial artist, 6 feet 1 inch of pure muscle, armed with 7 black belts. At 58 years old, he's in better shape than most men in their 30s. His striking power is legendary. Paul steps into the ring, and for the first time, he looks uncertain. White has a presence that is impossible to ignore. The bell rings, and White simply walks forward. Paul throws jabs to keep the distance. 1, 2, 3. White blocks them with his forearms like a child's punches. Paul fires his best combination. White blocks with one hand and answers with a jab that cuts straight through Paul's guard as if it didn't exist. The YouTuber's head snaps violently backward. White closes the distance. A low kick that sounds like thunder. Paul's leg almost completely gives out. A jab to the body that folds him forward. A cross to the body. A hook to the ribs. Each strike lands like hammer blows. Paul backs into the ropes, trying to protect himself. White shows no mercy. Another devastating hook to the ribs. The sound echoes through the gym. Then White executes the final sequence. High feint, brutal low kick that collapses Paul's leg, powerful cross to the solar plexus. Paul folds completely. A clean uppercut to the chin. Paul's legs turn to jelly. He falls backward, slamming onto the canvas with a dull thud. He's conscious, but completely destroyed. The referee doesn't even start the count. Fight over. Time, 2 minutes and 23 seconds. White kneels beside Paul and says, "You've got heart, kid, but heart isn't enough against real technique. Train more, talk less." And if that was real technique, what comes next is pure violence in motion. Because the next opponent doesn't fight with gloves, he fights with elbows, knees, and direct strikes. Tony Jaa, master of Muay Boran, the ancient and brutal predecessor of Muay Thai. He began training at the age of 10 in Thai temples. His knees are legendary. His elbows have put people in the hospital. But there's something Paul notices immediately. Jaa is only 5 feet 8 inches tall. Paul stands over 4 inches taller and has a significant reach advantage. Paul thinks he has a real chance. It's the biggest mistake he will make. The bell rings, and Paul tries to use his reach, firing long jabs. The first jab lands on Jaa's shoulder. Paul smiles briefly. Then Jaa explodes. The speed is blinding. Jaa closes the distance in the blink of an eye, slipping under Paul's jab. An explosive teep to the abdomen, a knee to the thigh that makes Paul scream, an elbow to the ribs. The height difference doesn't matter when your opponent moves like lightning. His compact frame becomes an advantage. Smaller target, faster, impossible to keep at range. Paul retreats in panic, throwing desperate jabs. Jaa surges forward, low kick, flying knee to the solar plexus, spinning elbow. All of it lands within seconds. Then Ja establishes the clinch. His hands wrap around the back of Paul's neck. Paul, taller and heavier, tries to muscle his way free. It's completely useless. Ja's control is absolute, and the knees begin to fly. 1 to the abdomen, 2 to the ribs, 3 to the solar plexus, 4, 5, 6. Each knee comes from a different angle. The power behind each one is absurd, but this is Tony Ja. This is the magic of Muay Thai. It's not about size, it's about perfect technique, hip rotation, and timing. Every knee carries the weight of his entire body behind it. Ja releases him only to fire a spinning kick into the shattered ribs. He re-establishes the clinch. 7, 8, 9 knees. Paul's abdomen is red, visibly swelling. The 10th knee crashes into Paul's liver. His body simply refuses to continue. He drops to all fours, then collapses onto his side, curled into the fetal position. The referee steps in. That's it. Time, 2 minutes and 48 seconds. Ja performs a traditional Y and exits the ring. He isn't even breathing hard. Paul is helped out by 2 people, completely folded over. The reach advantage meant nothing against explosive speed and lethal technique perfected since childhood. But what comes next isn't just speed, it's absolute precision. A master who wastes no movement. Donnie Yen, a living legend of Kung Fu, Taekwondo, boxing, kickboxing, Judo, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and MMA. At 61 years old, the man remains a perfectly tuned combat machine. Paul steps into the ring and faces Yen. Paul looks confident, believing his reach will give him the advantage. But there's something in Yen's eyes, a calm intensity born from decades of real combat, that makes Paul uncomfortable, and doubt begins to creep in. What Paul doesn't know is that he's about to face possibly the most complete martial artist of them all. The bell rings. Paul throws a probing jab. Yen deflects it with a Wing Chun movement so subtle Paul barely even sees it. Yen presses forward with controlled aggression. Paul tries to establish his jab to keep distance, but Yen is constantly switching styles. One moment he's in a boxing guard, the next, a Wing Chun stance. Then he explodes with Taekwondo kicks. He's impossible to read. Paul throws a combination, 1-2 hook. Yen blocks and counters. Paul tries to retreat, but Yen gives him no space. A side kick to the thigh with surgical precision. A straight punch to the solar plexus that rips the air from Paul's lungs. A low sweep that nearly drops him. Everything executed with an economy of motion that speaks of absolute mastery. The physical difference means nothing. Yen closes distance as if teleporting. His strikes come from impossible angles. His defense is impenetrable. Every time Paul thinks he's found an opening, it turns out to be a trap. Desperate now, Paul unleashes his best combination with full power. Yen simply moves. He doesn't retreat. He doesn't brutally block. He flows around the punches like water, and then he counters with something Paul has never felt before. A brutal low kick, a high kick that grazes Paul's jaw, a knee to the abdomen as Paul folds forward. The versatility is overwhelming. Paul is now constantly backing up, his guard rising in desperation. Yen reads his body language perfectly. Low feint, Paul drops his hands to defend. A spinning back fist connects to the side of Paul's head. It's not a full power shot, but it's enough to make Paul's legs wobble. Yen could end it now. But there's something almost educational about his approach. He's showing Paul the abyssal difference between their levels. Then he executes the final sequence. A classic boxing combination forces Paul to cover high. A judo sweep takes both of Paul's legs out from under him. Paul hits the canvas on his back. Yen is there instantly, applying a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu arm lock with perfect control. Paul feels his shoulder on the verge of dislocation. He tries to resist, but the pain is immediate and intense. He slaps the canvas with his free hand. I tap. The referee steps in. Yen releases immediately. No ego, no celebration. Time, 2 minutes and 54 seconds. Yen helps Paul to his feet and says calmly, "True Kung Fu isn't just one style. It's understanding all styles and knowing when to use each one. That takes a lifetime." Paul exits the ring, massaging his shoulder, completely humbled. The domination happened on so many different levels that it felt as if he had fought 5 different people. Yen's versatility, his speed at 61 years old, his ability to switch between styles effortlessly, everything was a brutal lesson in what a true master is capable of. For the first time, Paul understands that there are levels in martial arts he didn't even know existed. Jake Paul has built a boxing career on carefully crafted narratives, but there is a massive difference between being an amateur boxer and facing elite world-class martial artists. Paul has fought carefully selected opponents. No amount of YouTube views or Instagram followers can close that gap. There are levels to this, and Paul is several levels below true masters. If you want to know just how lethal these and other masters like Jean-Claude Van Damme, Jackie Chan, Jet Li, and more really are, you can't miss this video. In it, I break down their martial arts backgrounds, their greatest achievements in their disciplines, and the most fascinating facts about each one. Don't miss it. Support the channel with a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in that video.